Welcome to another discovery journey beyond perception. I'm Simon, and I have the true pleasure to be here today with William Whitecloud.
Yay!
And yeah, just a brief introduction. William, you are a best-selling author, a creative development trainer with, I don't know exactly, but I think more than 25 years of experience, and the founder of Natural Success. And you are really, and also with your company, dedicated to empowering people to unleash their genius and highest level of consciousness. Welcome, William. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks. Really good to see you again. Thanks for having me on your great show.
Yeah, and as I just shared, you have this vast experience in working with people and really supporting them and living literally their true nature and unique purpose. And I think the two of us, we know each other for, I think, close to 2 years now. And one of the key distinctions of your work and how you're training others, also myself, I would say, is that you're not sharing a belief system or worldview, but you're teaching through premises and principles. And I think that's a really good and great start. And would you mind, just for those who are maybe not yet familiar with your work, to explain what is a premise?
Well, a premise is an assumption about how things work, right? And scientists use premises. If you're going to go about something, you have to assume that there's a way it works, and that's very different than believing how it works. So you assume how it works. So, for instance, one of the premises of natural success, of the creative orientation, is that we're powerful, that we human beings are actually, in essence, pure creative spirit connected to everything through all time and space, right? And by virtue of that, are uniquely powerful, and that we create our own reality, and we create it based on our focus. And so the premise is that we're all powerful, that we create everything in the scope of our lives, and that the way that we create that is through our focus. Whatever our attention is on, we will manifest that, attract that into our lives, create that experience, have that thing, you see. And that's a premise. It's not a belief. We don't necessarily believe that, because if you consider that for a moment, it's like, do we absolutely create everything ever? That when we get hit by a hurricane, and this is what people ask me: do we get hit by a hurricane? That we created the hurricane? It's like, no, hurricanes happen, especially in hurricane climate areas. Hurricanes happen, and millions of people get affected by them. And so, very likely, we didn't create the hurricanes ourselves personally, right? But if you apply that principle, if you apply that premise, adopt that premise. Firstly, in applying the principles of creativity, one which I won't bore you or your viewers and listeners with in detail, but you find it's remarkable the extent to which you are responsible for what happens, right? And also, furthermore, if you assume, because that's what a premise is, it's an assumption, right, about the way things work. If you assume that you create everything in your life, well, then you will take responsibility for your focus in life, and pay attention to what you're focused on, and particularly with results that you expect and want to happen. You will then, use your focus very strongly to remain focused on that, and take actions towards that because you believe in your power, you see, or not believe in, but you have this assumption of your power that you're applying. And this is what we see. I see it in my own life. I see it in the lives of others, where a person is working with the premise that they have the power in their life. They will apply that power, and they'll apply it really assiduously, really strongly, and they will get better results, way better results than they normally do. And they'll get better results than a person who doesn't apply that premise, who doesn't assume that they create everything in their lives and that they all powerful. Joseph Campbell, the mythology guru, said this once. I heard him say it because he was asked in an interview when he was still alive, God bless him. Someone said to him, said something awful. He says, are you going to say that to people with AIDS, that they created that and it's their fault and all that? And he said, no, it's not their fault. I'm not going to walk around blaming people for what's happened. But just like I'm saying, what he said is, but if I assume that I create everything and and the power's with me, well, then I will bring my will to bear in life much more strongly than if I don't assume that. Then I'm just going to go, well, I want that, but I don't have any chance of having it, right? I want to stop that. I don't want to get that. I don't want to be sick, but I don't really. It's not up to me. And so then I don't apply my own agency in life, and certainly not as strongly, right? And so that's just an example of a premise, and sorry, it's not an example of a premise, but it's the understanding of premise and also the usefulness of premise, you see. And here's a really good example of a premise. I just happen to know a lot of champion swimmers from all over. It started with my older brother. He was a champion swimmer at school. And then even one of my mentors was a champion swimmer. And I've just known, I don't know what, my life has been full of champion swimmers, and I'm not, right? But virtually all of them have told me the same thing. And because they've told me the same thing, I then ask other champion swimmers, and they say, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like when they get taught how to swim, and swim faster, and they get taught all sorts of things. But one of the techniques that they get taught is to imagine that their hands are paddles, right? So, look at my hands, there's small little hands, but they get taught, imagine your hands are big paddles. And when you swim, you're pulling paddles, like you've got paddles. So now the funny thing is when swimmers imagine that their hands are paddles, they swim faster. They do, maybe fractionally, but they do swim faster than if they don't imagine their hands are paddles. So are their hands paddles, right? Do we have to believe that my hands are paddles? No, I don't have to believe it. I only have to imagine it. And that's a premise. My hands are paddles. That's how this works. That's what's going on here. My hands are paddles. And then I get a result, right? And it's a good result. So it's the results. And you see, a premise is as good as the results it gets. And so that's what we do is we just go, well, what are the best premises? What premises get the best results, you see? And one premise that's terrible, I'll give you an example of a terrible a terrible premise is there is a premise. There is an assumption that how it works is you have to believe that you can have something before you can get it, which is total nonsense. It's self-evidently untrue that you have to believe you can have something before you get it. I mean, there's so many things. If you really examined your own life and other people's lives, and if I examine my life, I've created or have and had and created a lot of things that I never believed I'd have, and never believed them until I had them. Right? So the premise that you have to believe something before you'll see it and have it, and that is a terrible premise, because then first of all, you're giving your subconscious a message you can't have it now because you don't believe it. And you go off on a campaign to try and create belief around having what you want, right? And, it really, the more you try and convince yourself that you can have something, that you build the belief to have something, the more you actually create the unbelief in it. It's like if you look at people who have trust issues, fear of safety and all that and I've observed this a lot. People who try to develop that trust of safety and all that create the opposite, actually, you see. So that's a very unuseful belief, premise, that you have to believe you can have something before you can have it. Whereas I use a premise: if you focus on what you want, whether you believe it or not, you'll create it if the focus is there. And to me, that's a much better premise, much more powerful premise. And I apply it, and the people I work with and train apply it. And we find, yeah, it works. And we watch the people trying to improve their beliefs. And we see that doesn't work very well, right? So anyway, it's a long answer to your question. But
no, I think it's really important. No? And, or not often gets that perspective. And was there a distinct experience or a mentor, or who introduced you to the difference between believing something or a worldview and like teaching or sharing based on principles or premises?
Well, firstly, I taught myself. I had, in the sense that I had a self-realization, because this is also a long story, which I'm not going to tell in its long version. I'll tell the very short version. Is I had a 10-year illness that took me from feeling mildly ill to being on my deathbed. And when I say that, I'm not exaggerating. I was literally on my deathbed, and nobody knew what it was, and nobody. Which is very rare, because whenever something's wrong with you, everybody knows what's wrong with you. Everybody knows what you should do about it. In my case, nobody knew, and it was 10 very bad years of suffering. And as I say, in the end, it was really bad. And then I got well overnight, not because someone diagnosed me, not because I took any medicine or whatever, right? I actually met someone who, well, maybe you could say they diagnosed me and prescribed something, but not in a conventional sense. But right there, when I was checking out, I met someone. I met someone who, after 10 years, was the first person that told me they knew what was wrong with me, and they told me they'd had the same thing. And when they described what they had, I really believed them, because I was never able to explain to anyone, I tried, but people didn't understand. No one related to what was going on for me at all. But when this person described their experience, I could really relate to it. I totally believed them, because they described it like exactly, and so I was amazed. It's like I was as amazed as I could be, because I was very sick. And they said that it's easy to cure. It's very easy. They'd cured themselves, and they could give me the cure, and I could be cured. And so it was like, oh, well, that's can't wait to hear what it is. And I was very shocked when they told me, because the guy was a guy, and he said to me, well, you got to start eating meat again, animal protein, chicken, meat, fish, and all that. And you also you need to have coffee. You need to drink a few cups of coffee every day, and you need to, when you have animal protein meals, you must drink some white wine with that. You must drink wine. And, it's really good if you smoke a few cigarettes every day, right? Now, these are all things: meat, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine. I'd given it all away, because, that's what all the healers and all that's like, toxins and this and that. And so I was just living on, by that time, vitamin injections and boiled cabbage and distilled water, and he has, given up everything, because everyone's like saying, oh, well, this is what's killing you, or to get better, this is what you must do. And, so I'd eliminated everything. And here's this guy telling me that what's going to save me is the very things that everybody else has told me is killing me and will kill me and all that. I mean, the only thing worse he could have said is you should shoot some heroin every day as well. And I was like at first very dismayed that this was a prescription, right?
Mm.
But I figured very quickly, it's like, well, look at him. He definitely had what I had because he told me what he's experienced, and now he's telling me what did it for him. And I just went, there's nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose. And I did what he said, and I was better in days. I mean, it took me months to put the weight back on, because you look at me now, I most probably was a third of the size, as a skin and bones, and had sores. And so it took, like a few months for the weight to come back on me and my skin to clear up and all of that. But my mental acuity and, like my energy and everything was just back in days. I made a profound realization through that, a really profound realization, because I'd come from a farm in a remote part of Africa, and I didn't know about personal development and spiritual development and consciousness and none of these things. I knew nothing about it. I'd never heard about it. I'd never read about it, but I made a realization for myself, which was that there must be a way in which I focus, that I pay attention, that determines what happens to me in life. That, like, my, what my experience of life is determined by my focus. I mean, it was an inescapable conclusion I came to very quickly, realization, because for 10 years I had done everything to avoid and stop being ill. And then later, everything, realizing I was heading towards the grave and that I'm going to die. And so, it's like I didn't want to die. And I traveled the world. I did everything I could while I was well enough at times to do whatever I could. I searched, I did all sorts of things, tried all sorts of diets and, whatever. And I just got worse and worse. And so I realized I was paying attention. I was focused on not being sick and then not dying. And the more I focused on not, on that negative vision of what I didn't want, the more it came on. And in the end, I'm not even saying that I got a positive vision, right? But I gave up my negative vision because I just went, screw it, I'm going to do it because I've got nothing left to lose. So I don't care anymore, right? And I'll eat that meat. I'll smoke the cigarettes. I'll drink the coffee. I'll have the wine, and if it kills me, it kills me. That becomes, I just gave up, that avoidance of whatever and just surrendered, right? And then I got well, and I never really believed that the meat did it, or that the animal protein did it. It just never, I never, believed it. It's never just like, oh yeah, there's something in meat, right? Or there's something in wine, or there's something in cigarettes, or there's something in coffee, that cured me. It's like, no, I just never got that. But the thing that I got was that my attention had changed, my focus had changed something, and then my experience and my reality kind of followed that change in focus. And I didn't know how it worked, and like exactly what it meant or how it worked, but I knew there was something behind that principle, and I was like really determined to find out what it was and how this worked. So anyway, with that intention, because I had a strong intention to find it out, I didn't even know that there was information on this anywhere in the universe, but I was like, I'm going to find out. And I didn't know that there was a whole movement of, right, around personal development, creative development, manifestation, all of this, right? And anyway, so I was very quickly drawn to work around that principle. You see that your focus creates your reality. And I was particularly drawn to the work of a real master in the field called Robert Fritz from the United States. And also I was drawn and discovered the sort of the teachings and the principles and the premises of alchemy, but specifically Hermetic philosophy, which is kind of the mind science, the manifesting branch or strand of alchemy, because there are various strands of alchemy, and believe it or not all of them are related to mind science, but Hermetic philosophy is, and so that were my real foundation, the Hermetic philosophy and Robert Fritz, and I mean, to be honest, they're the same. It's exactly the same. It's just one's, couched in a more ancient language, and Robert Fritz is a modernized language, right? So, like for instance, that the alchemists say, Hermetic philosophies is the law of rhythm, and the swing of the pendulum, and human beings live in this, in this rhythm of the pendulum, this oscillation between, going forwards in life and feeling powerful and all that, and then going backwards and, feeling like disempowered and whatever, right? And that the masterful sit at the apex of the pendulum and let the pendulum swing, on the lower, and while they operate on the higher, So it sounds very arcane and all that, but then Robert Fritz says, we have lower psychological structures that create our, that cause us to have our attention on our beliefs, and create our sense of separation and limitation and suffering in life. And yet we can create a higher structure above that. And while that lower structure will always exist in our consciousness, we can create a higher structure. And it's and he talks about in the lower structure, there's oscillation, because we experience ourselves in our limitation, personally, in our personal limitations, which is dependent on our belief systems, and then we strive to compensate for that and get away from that. So we have this progress away from our beliefs, but in the end, the beliefs are reinforced, because really what is driving us in life is those beliefs, even if it's just to get away from them. So the attention is still on them. So they pull us back, and so we go forward and backward. And there's the pendulum again, and he calls it oscillation. And he calls the apex of the pendulum the higher structure. And, it's when you understand, the teachings of Robert Fritz, it's just alchemy expressed in a modern way. I mean, he, I believe, kind of denies that his work originates from alchemy. And I believe it, because if there's a kind of a truth of, how things work, it would be available to other people, through different times to realize. And so he kind of claims that he's just someone who's realized this through creating, because he was a musician, you see, or is a musician, and so he studied composition and all of that, and through his studies of creativity, he came to these conclusions, right? And but they're just identical. There it is, and the principles are the same, the premises are the same, and they're very powerful, right? So that's that's my origin story. And I mean, I would say that you can't. I could never improve on those essential principles, those essential premises. they're just so, it is so fundamental and and solid, right? The only thing is that I've developed myself is, sort of insights into the depth of that body of work, and also techniques and tools that help apply it. That's stuff that I've developed by myself over those 30 years that I've been involved in this work. But I've never, come up with a new foundation or something, right? Anything foundational, because it's really, fully formed and really solid in terms of the foundation of those insights. It just can't be, in my opinion, I'd be amazed to see someone come up with something more profound, or with such integrity and such efficacy that just like creates such phenomenal results.
Yeah, thank you so much. It makes so much sense. And I mean, what I learned, or still learning from you, is also not to kind of become aware of all the concepts and maybe unconscious assumptions one is carrying with oneself. And one thing you keep repeating like a mantra is teach the premise, not what it means. No, and and maybe also people are listening to like, how can I figure this out? Like, what does that mean? Like, how can I use that for myself? And could you share a little bit of why you kind of repeat so often and teach the premise, not what it means?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just because, you see, meaning is the death of our soul. Meaning is the death of our soul. Meaning is the death of creativity. Meaning is the death of our power. Because meaning leads to beliefs, and beliefs then are a limitation. They just totally limit us. And most people that I know, maybe I'm a bit older, right? But still, even younger people I meet, they've seen a movie, The Matrix. Have you seen The Matrix?
Yeah, sure, yes, yeah.
Okay, so it's an old movie, right? But here we are. It's amazing how many people know that movie, and have seen it, and you see, in that movie, they've got kind of like superpowers, and they jump from building to building, And then when the new guy starts with them, Neo, the hero, the main character of the movie, he comes and he joins them, and he's learning, all the magic that they do. And the first time he tries to jump from one building across to another building, he doesn't make it, and he falls and he crashes in the street. And his operators are watching him, you see, in the control room there. And the one guy says to the chief woman, he says, "Oh, he didn't make it. What does that mean?" And she looks at him and says, "Nothing." You see, it doesn't mean anything, right? Yeah. He just fell, right? Yeah. You see, but the mind wants to know why it fell, you see, and it'll make something up. It'll make something up. You see, the ego seeks meaning. The ego seeks meaning. The ego is formed from the beginning by it has a premise, right? It operates under a premise. There's a central premise to the ego, and the ego operates under the assumption that there is a way it is. There is a way it is. There is a way I am, the world is, other people are. There's a way it is, because the ego is the vehicle of your orientation. It goes, if I know how it is, I'll know how to operate in life. Without that map, I can't operate, which is not true, because intuition is a far superior way of operating, of being guided in the moment, the relevance of a moment, how to operate. But the ego goes, no, I've got to have it worked out. I need to have it worked out. So it's dedicated to this principle, this premise, this assumption that there is a way it is. And so whenever anything happens, it assigns meaning to it. Like in the Matrix, when the guy falls, what does that mean? And the wise woman says, nothing. Doesn't mean anything. But the mind goes, this means something, you see. And so then from our very earliest age in life, start in life, things are happening. I mean, things happen in the womb. Things happen at birth, at the time we're born. Things happen when our mother's breastfeeding us, well, not breastfeeding us. Things happen, as we grow up. And the ego is there going, okay, this is happening. What does it mean? What is it? Why did my mother not pick me up when I cried? It has to mean something. She doesn't love me, so I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, whatever. So these beliefs grow, and they're beliefs of separation, of limitation, right? And they're not true, right? So they're unfounded, really. But yet we then subscribe to them. And that's why, we don't subscribe to beliefs. Other people do. There are other works and all that. And they go, you can buy a book and it says, these are the 7 immutable laws of the universe, right? Like 7 immutable laws in the universe. If you understand English, that means they just cannot be changed. It cannot be any different. This is how it is. And you see, you think, well, that guy's a spiritual author. Those are spiritual principles. No, they're not. That is egoic principles. The idea of how it is egoic, that this is the way it is. It's just like, no, that's not the way it is. You could choose that as your understanding of how things work and your explanation of how is your premise, but it's not the way it is. I mean, in any way that you ever thought it is will be defied at some time if you have the openness to acknowledge that, and so that's why we don't work with beliefs, because they can be, they could go, but that's a good belief, that's a good belief. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad belief. That's not the point. The belief, and any belief, is a limitation, right?
So then also, from my own experience and
also, if the mind is given its way, it's going to make up bullshit, negative, limiting beliefs. That's going to be its tendency, right? It's going to be its tendency. It's going to be its tendency. Yeah.
Yeah, from my own experience, what I just wanted to say is teach the premise, not what it means. I experienced myself, how I kind of want to jump to conclusions, how that fits into my worldview, etc. But then also applying the principles opens it. When one learns, and that's what I learned from you, to suspend that need to know, at least consciously for a moment, to then actually open up to a different experience.
Yeah. Well, you see, when you teach the work and you say, teach the premise and not the meaning, you see, is that it's a human tendency. As soon as you put forward a premise, right, the mind wants to work it out. So that if you say your focus creates your reality, you see, your focus creates your reality. So it's your focus that's creating your reality. You see, and that's a premise. Your focus creates your reality. But straight away, people want to, in their minds want to make sense of that and what it means. And then straight away they say, yeah, so, that hurricane that smashed Florida yesterday, did the people living there create that? And, whatever, right? and and then want to look at hypothetical situations in life to make meaning of that premise, rather than look at themselves and their situations and examine their focus. Because if you do that, right? If you limit it to your focus creates reality as applied to yourself, and an observation of yourself and what you focused on and how you focus, or what your situations are and what your focus was, prior to that situation, you'll see that your focus is very compatible with what happened, right? You see, we have a process called the unbendable arm exercise, and it's I think its origins is a martial arts demonstration. And you take someone's arm, you bend it like this, and you say, I'm going to bend your arm, and you must try and stop me, be as strong as you like, whatever. And generally what's going to happen 99%, 98% of the time, person's going to try and be as strong as they can, and the person bending their arm is going to bend their arm, right? And then you say to the person, okay, now let's do something different. Arm's still bent, but you see it's pointing there in that corner there. Now imagine that your arm's a ray gun, and out of your fingertips is coming white light, and it's shining wherever your arm goes, the white light shining. So now, no matter what happens, you don't say anything about bending arm. You just say, now, no matter what happens, I want you to keep your arm straight so that you keep the white light shining on that point. And then you, the person trying to bend their arm, try and bend their arm. You can be as strong as you like. You won't bend that person's arm, right? So it demonstrates that the focus creates reality. It's an exercise that demonstrates that the focus creates reality. And in the first instance, what the person's focusing on is being strong. And really, to be honest, the belief that they're not strong enough. Because people go, I can't, my arm's got a joint here. You can't keep that thing. This is a mechanically untenable position, right? It's going to bend, and I've got to be strong, and I can't be strong enough. People even say, can you use my other arm? It's a stronger arm. So it's strength, it's not, all the messages subconscious getting is my arm's going to bend. And sure enough, it does. But now, when there's no message about the arm bending, there's only one message. Shine the light on that point there, keep your arm straight, shine. Then no matter what happens, the arm stays straight. It's a very simple, but it shows you that your focus creates reality. So we establish your focus creates reality. We do a little demonstration like that. And it's like, you see that? How your focus impacted. But straight away, people don't go, oh, wow, that's amazing. Your focus creates reality. They go, well, what about the hurricane? What about the hurricane? You see? What about the hurricane? And then we have other exercises that go deeper, right? And they examine your consciousness, like when you have a conflict and you didn't get your way, you can examine where your attention, retrospectively, where your attention was, and what you were focused on. And you'll see that your focus was such that it led to that problem and that result. Well, it's consistent with that problem and that result. It's entirely consistent with it. So it's like, you see, that's a big coincidence that was your focus and that's what happened, because it's entirely consistent. So, like you start seeing, then people do that, and then they go, yeah, but what about the hurricane? So it's like, stick to yourself, stick to the premise and not hypotheticals, and be focused yourself and examine your focus, right? And then you'll see the truth of it. But you see, people, rather than contain it to themselves, see how it works and all that, they want to understand it, and so they they start like, creating meaning. It's like, that, and beliefs, or undermining very powerful premises. It's like, yeah, well, those people couldn't have created that hurricane. So my focus doesn't create my reality. You know what I mean? When there's so much evidence, and well, there's so much evidence that the premise is a very sound one, and then obviously the more you practice it, the more it bears out. It shows itself to be very effective. But people will destroy their power with meaning. You see, with the meaning they develop about things, right?
I mean, there's so many modalities and theories and concepts out there, not like promising or leading to self-discovery or self-empowerment. And maybe like from your point of view, that I think that would be very interesting. What is the differentiation between creating or creative orientation, and on the other hand, maybe spiritual teachings, other modalities, maybe transcending, healing? What if you distill this down, what would you say is a differentiation here?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say, because the different personality, personal development modalities, and they're different spiritual development modalities, and there's different healing modalities, and so you can't say definitively what the difference between everything is, right, or between me and them is, and that. But I mean, if you just take personal development, for instance, I mean, just very typically, what I understand about personal development and the experience of people, because we have thousands of people coming to do our work, right? And mostly they're not virgins. They've done a lot of work, and most typically, what we see and what people report is that personal development is based on the idea that, really, to be honest, that they can sort of like make claims about believing in the power of humans, and the creative power in humans and all that, but really they don't. Very typically, it's an understanding of ourselves as being broken, of being damaged and broken, and that, and very typically by one thing and another, but very typically by our past experience and the belief and our beliefs, right? And so then the name of the game is to fix ourselves, right? Is to fix ourselves. So on the one hand, they do have a tendency to go, look, you're an awesome, powerful being and all that, right? But we need to fix you, And so it's like saying to you, you're God, but you're broken, and we need to fix you, So so what are you going to fix? You're going to fix the worldview. You're going to fix the belief system. You're going to fix the sense of separation, the sense of limitation, so that they don't have that limitation anymore, have that sense of separation anymore. And that's kind of basically the model, right? And so that when you're fixed, you're going to be good. You're going to be good to go, right? And you see, there's a few problems with that, and that's the difference with between those modalities and my modality, our modality, right? The creative development. Because first of all, you see, It's a mechanical understanding of yourself. Is broken, fixed, is mechanical, right? And we're not mechanical. Our creative nature is not mechanical. It's consciousness, right? It's spirit. It's just not mechanical. And as spirit and as consciousness, in fact, super consciousness, what we really are is fine. It's nothing ever dented it or scratched it or bruised it. It's actually good to go already. It's fine. And so in creative development, you go, well, just come from that side of yourself. You've got an egoic side to yourself. You've got a side of yourself that's had experiences and has beliefs and all that. You have that. And that's okay, because you've also got another side of yourself that's your creator self. So just orientate from your creator self. But personal development, from what I've seen and what people report, is a mechanical idea of a self that, there's this broken side of ourselves. And unless that side of ourselves is fixed, we've got no hope. We've got to fix that before we're good to go, as I said. Now, the problem with that is that it doesn't recognize the self as purely creative, for a start, and consciousness and spirit. It sees ourselves as mechanical. And then also, by being preoccupied with what's wrong and what needs fixing, that's where the attention is. Now, that's where we focused on. We're now focused on that. You go, oh, that's good. We're fixing ourselves and everything. No, you're not. You're just focusing on the mechanical, wounded side of yourself. You're just putting the focus on the mechanical, wounded side of yourself, right? So you're actually reinforcing it and intensifying it. You see? And so you actually enhancing the experience of the victim nature of yourself, right? So that's not a good thing. That's a terrible thing. Also, it never readies you really to, because of that. Also, it never readies you to begin creating. And the problem is, sometimes people have a perception that they're fixed, but are they really of their most fundamental, egoic identity? No, because if you were, you would have no more personality. You'd be just like a very bland, uninteresting person with no personality, right? So you're not really fixed in that, but even if you are in that orientation, it's like, well, so where do you go with that? Where's the realization? So you fixed, like, okay, the end result is to fix this mechanical sense of yourself. And so let's say it was ever fixed, which it isn't, but let's say it's ever fixed. So then what? So your mechanical self is fixed. But what about your soul? What about your spirit? What about like your mission on earth, your true nature and purpose, your destiny of what you meant to, create here? Your heart, you see, the understanding of the heart is like what matters to you, what you care about, like in life, right? You truly care about what matters to you, what you love, and the gifts and talents and abilities that you have to manifest all of that, right? Your true path in life. It's not going to bring you to that. Just fixing never brought, I mean, think about a car. It's broken and you fix it. Well, where's the driver? Where's the gas? Where's the now driving it around? It's just fixed. There's now in the garage, just fixed. But where's it going to go? So these are the problems that you see with personal development. And when people come and do creative development, which doesn't subscribe to fixing, which doesn't, it's just like understands. We understand what the ego is. We understand what beliefs are. We understand separation, because to be here and be you and me be me, to have an individual sense of existence. Do you know that we have to create that? We have to create that. We don't come here with an individual sense of existence. We have to manufacture it. When a child is born, it doesn't know it's not everything else. Doesn't know it's not its mother. That gets developed over time and pretty quickly, but it gets developed. It has to be manufactured. And what manufactures that is the beliefs, because our beliefs give us an individual sense of existence. They give us a sense of limitation, of separation, all of that. So, you know, it separates us from everything else. But funnily enough, it also separates us from our power and what we want to create.
Irony.
Right? Just its problem. It's irony. But we understand that. We go, yeah, we need an individual sense of existence. So that machine that gives us our individual sense of existence, we let it keep running. But we don't buy into it. We don't give it power. We turn our attention to our infinite selves that is right there, ready to go. To our infinite selves, to our creative selves, to our powerful selves and our hearts, like what matters to us in life, what we truly care about, and what we want to get on with, and we get on with that, right? We get on with that, and that's a big difference. And when people come and do our work, creative development, they really realize there is a profound difference. And they report a few things. First of all, I think the big relief that they don't have to fix themselves anymore. That you don't have to be perfect in order to create or get ahead in life or be a certain way. That however you are, you can create. You can create. And that's just palpably demonstrated by creators. I mean, you can get and I've known them, the biggest arseholes. I've known some of personally, I've had friends with some of the greatest artists of our times, painters of our times, and they were real shits. You know what I mean? They had real problems, and but they could still create amazing art. It didn't matter that they were arseholes or whatever, that they were heroin addicts or what. They could still create amazing art. And that's so true. Howard Hughes, one of the greatest, I think maybe the first billionaire in history. I'm not sure, but one of the first, back in his day, if you had a billionaire, it's like, that's when in his day, when you were a millionaire, you were like a billionaire is today. And he was a billionaire in that time. And he invented like oil rigs, and he designed and flew and made airplanes, and he made movies with Jane Russell. And, and the guy was bipolar. He wasn't fixed bipolar. He was bipolar, right? So the evidence of how people can create regardless. Now, I'm not advocating being, I wouldn't want to suffer psychologically and all of that. And we don't have to, by the way. But I'm just saying, you see, it's a different orientation, right? And so what I'm also saying is that people are just so relieved when they come across this work, when they come across creative development. It's like, oh my God, I don't have to fix myself. I spend so much money and so much time trying to fix myself and never got there. Never got there. I mean, we know people who have spent $300,000-$400,000 on belief clearing techniques and stuff like that. And they came to us and said, I still, I've changed nothing. I just thought if I did more, it's somewhere at some point I'm going to fix the beliefs. I'm going to clear it. They offered me the next course. I thought this one, and this relief of, oh my God, you know what? I can just be a normal human being, and being a human being is different than creating, right? So I can be a bloody human being, but I can be an incredible creator, right? So I don't have to fix myself. And the other thing is this works? They go like, this works. This is the first thing I found that works, right? Because mostly, what people learn about, manifestation and all that doesn't work because they're using it to get away from what they don't want. Like with me, when I was, sick and dying, just getting more and more sick and dying more and more, right? They use it to get away from what they don't want. And they may not be aware of it, but that's part of the problem. They're unconscious. They're going for things, but the unconscious motivation for going for those things is to get away from their sense of limitation, their sense of separation, their fears, their insecurities, their woundings, right? And they don't know that's where the attention is. That's where the focus is. So they just keep it. That's why the alchemists say oscillation, swing of the pendulum, you go nowhere. You go nowhere, right? Whereas once you exit that orientation and understand, yourself and what you would compensate for, and stop and actually learn a way to go for what actually matters for you, that is not a negative vision, but is a true, what I'd call a true end result. And then you find that's easy, much easier, much more effortless to flow towards. So those are the two big things. People go, oh my God, I don't have to fix myself. And oh my God, this actually works.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I don't know if you subscribe to that, but you could say that there's a kind of a healing or relieving effect from creating.
Well, yeah, that's what we say, is you don't have to heal yourself to create. But funnily enough, creating is very healing. It is, right? Because, to create is to come back to your heart and who you really are and what really matters, and the other orientation, which we call the egoic orientation, it's very toxic. It's toxic. It's preoccupied and reinforcing of your wounded self, right? And it, it's like it's like keeping sores, wounds open all the time, right? And it keeps putting the power in the wounds, in the beliefs, all that, right? But when you create, you stop it, and so the power is going into what you love, and the power is being taken out of your wounds, your fears, your insecurities, all that. The power goes out of it. So there isn't that kind of energy in it anymore. That dis-ease just doesn't have its strength anymore, right? And so there's a huge calming down of the psyche and the all aspects of yourself, the physical, because it all corresponds and it's all related. The egoic preoccupation is very stressful. It's very stressful. It keeps you in high stress, in a high level of stress. And it's objective. Your objective is to get rid of stress. That's why everybody's in it, is to get rid of the stress in their life, the tension in life. But it's just keeping the stress levels up, right? But when you create, your stress levels go right down. And I believe I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, or I'm not even a healer or anything, but I've got a bit of insight into it, or over the years had quite a bit of insight into it, and there's definitely a correspondence between literal health, right, and low stress. I mean, if you get cancer or some of these things, the first thing they go is like, you got to take the stress out of your life. Stop, de-stress. And creating is a hugely de-stressing orientation. But also, you see, there's another kind of healing, because the very word healing means towards wholeness. I mean, I don't know if you know that, but that's what it means in our English language anyway. It means towards wholeness, right? And you see, personal development, I think spiritual development, all of these developments, they basically hold that you're broken, that you're not whole. Whereas when you get into creating, you go, yeah, I'm whole. The whole premise is based on, it assumes wholeness. I'm whole. I'm good to go. you know, I've got all of me. There's all of me, and all of me is okay. All of me is okay. Even my egoic self and dysfunctional self, dysfunctional side. That's okay. I got that, but it's all right. It's all welcome at home. And it's allowed to be and exist in the big circle of who we are. Personal development, spiritual development is trying to push it out, trying to push it out, trying to push it out. No, this part of me can't exist. I've got to push it out. It's denied. Parts of yourself you're denying, you won't allow, and you're pushing it out. Wow, what do you think that is? Then they're pieces of the cake that you're cutting and keeping out, of the whole. And that is not spiritual. It's like I'm not, because there's a lot of different spiritualities and modalities and all that. So I'm not painting them all with the same brush, but you can see there are the ones where there's a lot of denial of like say negativity. It's like you see these people, the sort of heads are floating above their bodies. It's like it's all good. It's all good. You're not allowed to feel like if I'm pissed off with you. Are you pissed off with me, William? No. I'm not. I'm good. I never feel anger, right? Yeah? You see, it's bullshit, right? It's just bullshit. I'm pure. I never have impure thoughts. You see, that's denied. That's denied. That's unwhole. That's unhealthy, right? The creative orientation isn't like that. It loves everything. It loves everyone. It loves everything. It loves all parts of ourselves. It doesn't go, it doesn't excuse behavior and all of that, but it accepts that it prefers, a certain way, certain things, and really generally promotes the highest good, right? But it doesn't deny anything. It doesn't deny any part of ourselves. So there's a tremendous wholeness in creating, and there's incredible de-stressing because of that, leaving the preoccupation on the broken, wounded self, right?
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and from my own experience I can absolutely confirm that. So yeah, thank you, William, for taking the time to speak to us today, and also for sharing the work to educate more people about this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone out there for listening and all that. But the last thing that you said is in my experience, and this is the thing, is that in your experience it works, right? So and that's the funny thing, you see, is you can have other premises and you can argue for your beliefs, and often people challenge my premises, and I don't care, because you can say what you like about them and think what you like about them, but the fact of the matter is the proof's in the pudding. The people that actually apply them get incredible results, and so it's the results. It's not the intellectual argument that counts. It's just the results, So anyway, just to engage what you said right at the end there. In my experience, mine too. In my experience, I wouldn't. I'm one thing I'm not is an idiot, right? And I wouldn't have been on this path for 30 years if it wasn't amazing, right? And if someone else couldn't have shown me a more successful way or premise, right? I'd be on it like that. That, right? But anyway, thanks, Simon. Great chat, huh?
Yeah, thank you, William. So I will, like, for those who are not yet familiar with your work, I will put all the references to your webpage, and maybe there's an upcoming event. I don't know if you have scheduled something where people can check out your work directly. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
well,
want
we've got some amazing free trainings, really comprehensive trainings. They're not run all the time, but if you go to my website, Natural Success, yeah, I mean you can just Google
yeah, I will put it
Whitecloud.
in.
Are you going to
You
put
will
it
find
there,
it
right?
down there. Yeah.
So okay, of course, yeah, of course. So if you know, if you go to the website and you sign up for the newsletter, you know, we send you something, you know, once a month about what's going on with the work, and also we'll alert you to our free online courses. They're free, and they, you know, really, as you know yourself, that's how you came, right, to
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
Very extensive, you know, in this very subject, right? And so that's where people can get a taste. Or, you know, I've written a couple of books like this one, The Magician's Way, and The Secrets of Natural Success, my latest one, which is kind of like, this is an allegorical novel. It's a story, you know, conveying the work. But this is like more like the manual of the work, right? So yeah, books, website, check it out. Watch out for the next free round of workshops that come up. And you know, you too can be on the healing whole path to creating magic. Yeah, seriously. Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, William. Yeah, all the best, and also thank you for everybody watching and listening, for your curiosity. Yeah, that's yeah, how to say, like, let's create some magic. Yeah,
Magic. Yeah. There's like I say, there's no reason to live anything else other than a magical life, right? No reason.
Well, perfect last words, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Right, brother.
And
See you
goodbye.
later.
See you soon. Yeah. Bye. What's my potential? What's really inside me? Is it possible to be joyful and to express who I truly am? Do I have unique gifts and talents? And if I do, how do I find them? And if I find them, how do I bring them into life? And is it even possible to make a living from what I actually love to do? Those were some of the questions which drove me now more than a decade. And I don't want to give you a definitive answer, but I learned very valuable principles on my quest that helped me to discover who I am and to bring what I am actually into this life, beyond expectations, beyond conditioning, beyond limiting or self-defeating negative thoughts. And now I want to be the bridge and pass those principles on to you, and not only remind you with my words, but actually enable you to discover and experience that for yourself, real self-discovery, that you are a wonderfully creative being, a genius in the true sense of the word, and you have the potential and the possibility to unfold what is actually in you and set yourself creatively free. This is my mission. Very important, please don't believe my words or possibly your own skeptical thoughts, but check it out, experience it for yourself, and take part in our next seminar, Structural Creativity. More information here. I'm really looking forward to set your creativity free.